So they could see faces.
Yes, so they can see our faces now. Hello, I want to welcome everyone to Sustainable Commuting. I'm Bobby Safransky, the events director here at Clean Air Council, and I'm excited to welcome you to one of many events for the 2020 virtual GreenFest Philly presented by Toyota Hybrids. If you're not familiar with GreenFest Philly, it's the area's largest environmental festival celebrating all things sustainable for the past 15 years. It's no surprise that this year is entirely virtual with live interactive programming like the one you're at today, and it goes until this Sunday, September 27th. You can see a full list of our scheduled events at cleanair.org/greenfest. And if you missed anything, you can go to that same website and see our recap page that has videos of everything, just as this webinar is going to be recorded. A little more info about Clean Air Council. Clean Air Council is a member-supported organization working to protect everyone's right to a healthy environment. We have over 8,000 members, all bringing their passion in the fight for better environmental health protections and are key to our ongoing work to protect public health and ecosystems. But we need you. We need you to take actions on alerts that we send out, to give us feedback on the programs that we offer, and spreading our work through social media. Finally, please consider making a donation. I'll post the link in the chat so you can see more information about our work and become a member and join those 8,000 people. We'll have a discussion and a Q&A at the end of this webinar, but feel free to post your questions in the chat just to not forget them, and we'll keep track and then bring them up at the end. Okay, I'll kick it over to Maya and Will also from Clean Air Council to talk about sustainable commuting.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Bobby. Just want to make sure everyone can see the first slide of the presentation here. I got a thumbs up from Maya or Bobby.
You are good.
And yeah, thanks, Bobby, for that introduction. And thanks, everyone, for attending this GreenFest transportation presentation, our lunch and learn on Go Philly Go and our general transportation work. As Bobby mentioned, my name is Will Fraser. I am a Sustainable Transportation Outreach Coordinator for Clean Air Council. And today, both Maya and I hope to talk a bit more about the Council's transportation work and how it connects to the region's transportation goals. And to start off, we'd like to ask attendees how they normally, pre-pandemic, commute to and from work. I'm going to launch this poll here, ask folks to take a second and tell us a little bit more about your commute. I see folks filling this out, which is great. And as a reminder, and as Bobby mentioned, please use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen, or excuse me, the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions. We've set aside a time at the end of the presentation for general discussion to answer any questions that audience members have. So yeah, it looks like we have a couple people here. I'll give another maybe 10, 15 seconds and the poll. So it looks like public transit. We have 78% of the folks, of course, GreenFest attendees doing their part, taking public transit to and from work, almost 80%. More than 50% are biking to and from work, and only 11% driving alone. So we've got some real green commuters out there, which I would expect nothing less. So I'll share those for everyone to take a look at. And then quickly just talk a little bit more about the council in general. As Bobby mentioned, we're a member-supported nonprofit dedicated to protecting everyone's right to a healthy environment. The council was founded in 1967, making it older than the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act. And we are the oldest environmental nonprofit inside of Pennsylvania. The council also acts as Philadelphia's transportation management authority, working with businesses and employers to shift employees' commute modes away from one-person, one-car commutes to more sustainable transportation options. And the council's focus on transportation issues is really more important than ever, as nationally the largest share of greenhouse gases comes from the transportation sector. This is actually a recent development over the past few years where it has outpaced electricity generation as the top emission contributor. And greenhouse gases from transportation primarily come from burning fossil fuels with our cars and our trucks, ships, trains, and planes. And over 90% of the fuel used for transportation is petroleum-based, which includes both gasoline and diesel. And then looking a little bit deeper into our regional greenhouse gases, transportation is second only to industrial greenhouse gas emissions in the Philadelphia region, as you can see from this chart. And kind of where our emissions come from specifically per passenger mile and travel mode. You can see this chart illustrates kind of the emissions per passenger mile in the Philadelphia region, really specific to the Norristown High Speed Line and to SEPTA buses specifically. You can see on the left end that walking and bicycling are zero emission travel modes. All the way to your right in red, driving alone is double almost all other travel mode emissions. So it's really what we're getting at with our transportation work. How do we get people out of those single occupancy vehicles? And taking a snapshot of in the region, how do Philadelphians get to and from work for their commute. You can see at the bottom of that graph, more than half of workers who live in Philadelphia drive to work alone, which is a big number. In fact, Philadelphia is only second to Chicago for the average travel time it takes to get to work, which is over 33 minutes one way. And almost a quarter of commuters take public transit, which is great. We have more participants on the call today. I think it was 78%. And then 8% walk to work and also 8% carpool. And Philadelphia has its own goals to be able to improve its transportation options. The city of Philadelphia created Philadelphia 2035 that outlines a comprehensive vision for the city's transportation goals by 2035. Those goals include improving transportation safety, efficiency, and convenience, and really focus on balancing the roadways to ensure safe and efficient travel modes are included, including biking and walking. Some specifics in that plan include reducing transportation CO2 emissions by 10% by 2025, increasing bike share trips by 100%, and those taken by minority or low income populations by 120% by 2025. The plan also calls to increase the percentage of commuters who walk, bike, or use transit from 36% to 41% by 2025. And the council's Clean Commute program, specifically our Mobility Alternatives Program, MAP, focuses on this mode shift that the city recognizes as a problem, and we really promote sustainable commute options such as walking, biking, public transit, and carpooling. And it's proven that companies and institutions that offer benefits for sustainable commutes see better employee retention and happier employees. So this is something, if there are any employers on the call today, this is something to consider for your organization or business. By far, pre-tax commute options or commute benefits are the most popular commuter benefit. They allow employees to set aside pre-tax dollars from their paycheck to pay for expenses related to commuting to and from work. Most popular are sort of transit passes, monthly or weekly transit passes that you can have taken out pre-tax so that you don't pay taxes on them. This can also be used for carpooling and van pooling. And those taking regional rail can save a significant amount of money per year, up to $500-600 if you're coming in from some of the further zones. And WageWorks is one of the companies that helps businesses with these types of benefit programs. Another great free commuter match service, Share a Ride, helps individuals start or join a van pool or carpool. You can find people who live in your area and work in your area at that website listed there. And it's a great way to sort of get to know someone who lives by you ahead of time, meet them for a coffee, kind of really decide how you want to work the carpool. Will you be switching from week to week? Is someone paying for gas and someone driving? And kind of figure out the details before you start carpooling together. And carpooling has great economic benefits. Adding only one additional person, you can save over $2,400 per year. If that one other person happens to be driving alone to and from work as well, you're cutting the emissions in half of your vehicle or vehicles. And obviously with each additional person has added environmental benefits as well as additional savings. And so the last big benefit we'll talk about is emergency ride home. This is kind of a little known benefit that people who commute sustainably at least 3 days a week are eligible for. It's really as a safety net and great benefit for parents with young children or for those who might have elderly parents at home who feel like they may need a car in order to rush to an emergency. And those taking those sustainable commutes for 3 days a week are eligible to be reimbursed for an emergency ride home in a taxi, a cab, an Uber or a Lyft. You submit after signing up for the program through Share a Ride. You submit your receipt to be able to be reimbursed, which is great. And another great benefit that I think more and more businesses are offering to their employees are Indigo passes. Indigo is Philadelphia's bike share that offer both electric and traditional bikes to use at over 140 stations around the city. And all of those stations are accessible 24/7, 365, which is great. Indigo also provides safety classes and learning opportunities. And this program is offered to all levels of cyclists. And also you don't have to be a pass holder to participate, which is really great. And then I think Maya's going to take it away and talk a little bit more about our Go Philly Go work.
Thanks so much, Will. Hi, my name is Maya Friedman. I also work for the Clean Air Council doing outreach around sustainable transportation, primarily Go Philly Go, which I'm going to talk about for a bit right now. So Go Philly Go is our trip planning tool that allows people to basically figure out ways to get around the region using a combination of these sustainable transportation methods, whether that's planning how you're going to be getting to work as part of your commute, or if it's how you're going to access green space or make it outside during this kind of strange, unusual time where it becomes more and more relevant to get outside and be in nature. So basically, Go Philly Go allows you to plan multimodal trips, meaning that you can combine different types of transportation, whether that be walking and biking or riding public transit and biking, and kind of use the variety of options available to you to figure out basically the best ways to get around the region. We also, it's specifically designed to connect people with environmental centers and outdoor space in the region. Particularly, we partner, you can go back actually. Sorry, Will. So we partner with the Alliance for Watershed Education, which has 23 environmental education centers throughout the region and does really cool work connecting people to the Delaware River watershed. And so destinations like those that are kind of outdoor spaces are a really important part of it because obviously it's important to be able to get anywhere, including rec space without a car and in a sustainable way. So I'm going to talk through a bunch of features that you can use for commuting. So this is kind of the page you'll find if you go to the Go Philly Go website on the left. is our home page, where you can find different destinations and also check out events that are happening around the region. You can also click over to the Learn tab if you want and kind of check out what we're talking about around multimodal transit and getting around environmental centers in the region. And when you click on a destination, you'll find out information around it, like what kinds of activities you can do at that specific place. And then you can get directions in order to get there. You can go to the next slide. Yeah. Another great tool that is available on Go Philly Go is that you can figure out what spaces are near to you, whether it's near to your work or near to where you live. We have a walk shed / bike shed feature, which allows you to basically figure out how many different of our destinations are within walking or biking distance at different time intervals. So 15 minutes through an hour. And as you can see, you can make it a long way on a bike in Philly and see a lot of different places. You can move to the next one. Yeah, and so finding routes. One of the really cool things about this Go Philly Go system is that it allows you to kind of customize how you are traveling as a person. And the way you do this is when you're mapping your route, and you can choose amongst a variety of different choices. This particular route that you're seeing on the screen here, this is also accessing green space, moving from Center City to Clark Park in West Philly. But this is using the Indigo bike share function. So basically our map on Go Philly Go connects up with the Indigo bikes and the bike share locations. So you can map a way to get from whatever point you're trying to get to whatever point you're trying to get where you're going, using these bike share locations, and kind of figure out a way to go by bike even if you do not own your own bike. And this can be really useful both for commuting and also for whatever recreation activity you're doing. You can also set different features when you're deciding to ride your bike. So depending on what kind of bike rider you are or what particular thing you're out to do, you can choose between these settings, which include you can pick the safest route, which will take you to bike lanes and to places that have bike trails. You can choose the fastest route if you're late for work. That's probably the best option, but basically get there as efficiently as possible. Or you can choose the flattest route if you really don't want to go up and over any hills. So those are some of the settings you can choose. And when you're on the Go Philly Go site, you can find those after you've selected where you're going on kind of the green bar on the left to choose your different options. And then a new thing that we have going on Go Philly Go right now is tours, which connect a bunch of different destinations in a particular area. This particular tour is of the Navy Yard, and if you would like to go and explore it, it's a 5.5 mile bike loop around the Navy Yard that stops at a bunch of different places, and you can decide which of the destinations that you would like to go to. And this particular one you can do without a bike of your own because there are Indigo bike stations located right around this area. There's also some new art that's down there. So if you're looking to see some new things that have changed during our kind of unchanging time, that would be a cool place to go for a bike ride. Yeah, and so once you have decided you're either going to be biking for work, for commuting, or just in your free time to get the places that you want to get to, I wanted to let you know that right now it is Cycle September, which is a global bike challenge or kind of competition that we participate in. And the idea is to just get as many people as possible to spend time biking, whether it's to commute or just in their daily lives. And the idea is to encourage your friends, your coworkers, your family to all bike around and do it collectively as part of this competition. You can win prizes. And even if you don't have a bike, you can sign up. You can use Indigo Bikes. They have a special promo code, which is listed on this slide, and you can use that through the end of the month. So even though we know it's the end of September. You can start now and still participate in this particular event. And you can sign up at lovetoride.net/Philly. And this is the website that you'll get to once you log in and create a profile. And as you can see, this one is for me. And it connects with my workplace. So we're kind of competing together as a workplace, and you can see how many miles you're going, what you're saving in terms of emissions, and you can earn badges and just keep track of how often do you bike? Is this something that you do frequently, and how can you kind of set goals to do it more and more frequently? And the Love to Ride site is also really useful if you're trying to get into biking. There's a bunch of kind of tools and advice for riders of all different levels to be like, what are the barriers to you doing this, and how can you overcome them or figure out ways around them? And beyond just the regular benefits of biking that we've been discussing, you can win actual prizes. These are some of our local sponsors on the right here on this slide. And this point system is how you can win points as part of the challenge. As you can see, you win a bunch of points by basically convincing people to get in on biking and having them sign up for this. For the challenge. This week in particular, we're running a particular prize. So basically the person who encourages the most people in this specific week will win a tune-up from Firth and Wilson for their bicycle. So even if you haven't started participating, you can do that now. And if you just encourage 2 people to bike, you will win a box of Cliff Bars. So plenty of time to get involved. And also, even if you don't now, generally get biking. And then today, specifically, is actually Love to Ride to Work Day. Traditionally, this has meant biking to work, but really nothing is terribly traditional this year. So whether or not you end up actually biking to work, you can go on a bike ride wherever you are. Whether you use Go Philly Go to find a place, or if you go on your favorite local trail. Another great way to celebrate, besides coming to this event, is to attend the virtual Urban Riding Basics class this evening at 6 p.m., which is hosted by the Bicycle Coalition. That's a really great way to learn about biking on city streets and how to do that in like a safe and knowledgeable way and become confident doing that, which will allow you to maybe commute in the future, even if that's something that you don't really do by bike right now.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd encourage everyone to visit that Urban Riding Basics class. It's not only for beginners, but it has something that I think everyone could learn, even the experienced cyclists. So if you have an opportunity tonight, jump on there, and it's a great education experience to learn a little bit more about biking. And if you're still hungry for places to bike and new places to explore beyond, including the Go Philly Go app, you can find a lot of the circuit trails along them around the Philadelphia region. Clean Air Council is a member of the Circuit Trails Coalition, which is a group that focuses on expanding and improving the vast regional network of hundreds of miles of multi-use trails in the 9-county region. And the coalition works to advance the completion and use of the circuit trails while connecting local communities and providing opportunities for recreating and community. So check out the circuit trails too. There's probably one by your house if you're not familiar with it yet. And then wanted to quickly talk about walking as well, which is a commute option that is often overlooked. About 8.5% of Philadelphia commuters walk to work, and has really great benefits for your health. Walking 30 minutes a day can increase muscle and endurance, and also reduce the chances of heart disease and diabetes. And that kind of leads us into the council's work as Feet First Philly, Philadelphia's pedestrian advocacy organization. The focus of the Feet First Philly is really improving the safety of the pedestrian environment and also protecting the rights of pedestrians while encouraging walking throughout Philadelphia. We also wanted to take this opportunity to plug another great Greenfest presentation this Friday at 1 p.m. Feet First Philly will be talking about our newly created pedestrian resource guide. The purpose of this guide is to make Philadelphia residents and community organizations aware of the pedestrian safety resources that exist in Philadelphia. And the guide helps users identify different problems that may make sidewalks and streets dangerous for pedestrians and find a way to address those problems. Those issues can vary, but the guide provides information about sidewalks, road conditions, parking, and driving behavior, and the quality of life issues that impact pedestrians inside of Philadelphia. And for folks who are excited about this and are thinking about attending a Greenfest webinar on Friday, Feet First Philly also host walks put on by a volunteer committee. We've put that on for pause now. Put that on pause for now, but that's something that we'll pick up next year. We also engage residents in pedestrian advocacy, including a Twitter campaign called #NotAspot, where residents report illegally parked cars in crosswalks and on sidewalks that the group then reports to the city. And you can also join our newsletter and follow us on Facebook and Twitter to get general news and information, especially about our newly created events, communication, and policy subcommittees that all are invited to. So with that, I think we will kind of go over to the Q&A for folks who have any questions. And Maya and I's contact information is on this last slide if you're interested in learning any more about the things that we spoke about.
So we have a question from Steve asking if you can access the Navy Yard loop at any time, or I'm guessing, or if it's closed at certain times.
No, you should be able to access it at any time.
Yeah, the Navy Yard is private property, but they've more or less opened it up for all residents to use at any time. At the beginning of the pandemic, I know they were a little bit more shut down, but I think they've really opened up since then. So, and there's some great green spaces down there. There's a trail along the Delaware River, which is really cool. It's kind of a pseudo fishing pier, but there's a lot of cool green spaces, and including Central Green has a jogging track around it, and the Marine Parade Grounds is just a giant, huge open field if you were looking to hang out with people from your household and throw around a Frisbee or a football.
Can you actually recommend a good route to get to the Navy Yard from, say, Center City?
Yes, I think that's a tough. That's a tough one for cyclists, especially. But for public transit users, the Navy Yard actually offers 2 different shuttles. One that picks up at NRG Station, which is the last stop on the Broad Street line on the south end, that connects you to the Navy Yard and stops at 4 or 5 different locations. They also started up their Jefferson bus too, so you can outside of the regional rail stop at Jefferson Station, you can catch a Navy Yard bus down there. And then there's a couple routes. You can also walk, like from NRG Station. I think it's only a half mile to the Navy Yard entrance, so it's not too far. You can also use, there's Indigo, as Maya mentioned, Indigo stations at NRG Station that you can take into the Navy Yard as well. Eventually that side path on Broad Street will be a multi-use trail. It's a really wide sidewalk now, it's 12 feet wide. So that's been in the works for probably almost 10 years that they're making that into a side use trail. And it's something the Navy Yard's working on a new master plan that I think they're identifying better pedestrian and bicycle connections currently. So hopefully those improve, but yeah, for now, taking Broad Street down via car, or hopefully taking a bike or walking from NRG, or connecting to the shuttle is your best way in there.
And Catherine asked if what the pandemic means for the future of transportation, or for public transportation in Philly.
Just an easy question. We definitely all know the answer to this one.
Yeah, public transit's been hit really hard, not just in Philadelphia, everywhere. Ridership is dramatically decreased. I think that's something at the beginning of the pandemic that people, unless they didn't have any other option, were kind of taking public transit, and SEPTA's in a pretty big hole financially right now that they'll have to figure out how to dig themselves out of. So yeah, during the pandemic, it's really tough. SEPTA has done, I think, a good job on putting out ambassadors who are handing out masks for those people not wearing masks, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, when a lot of drivers were sadly getting sick. They work to sort of address that health crisis for their own employees by protecting them with sort of boarding in the rear, and having capacity limits for each of the different types of public transit. And I think what's kind of come to light for most public transit, not just again in Philadelphia, is that the ventilation on public transit is actually pretty good, and that folks are safer than initially everyone thought taking public transit. So I think as that comes to light a little bit more, and folks are still being safe, wearing masks as SEPTA passes out masks, people will start to sort of return, who knows when, but people will eventually return to public transit as a sort of major form of commuting.
And Joe is asking whether you have recommendations for an older Philadelphian to start biking. It can be very scary to start, so there's it's obviously understandable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely scary to start biking in the city. I would say start on trails and then start on places that have bike lanes. There's you can use on Go Philly Go. There's a setting that shows you where all the bike lanes are around the city. So like make a plan before you go and like figure out exactly where you're going to be so that there's less stress when you're actually doing it. And then you can also use the Indigo bikes if you want to like figure out how to get to a certain point and then you're like, wait, I don't really know how to do this connection between these two places. But yeah, being flexible, making a plan, starting small, getting more confident.
And to plug tonight's Urban Riding Basics class for Greenfest, I think that's also a good place to start because yeah, it's scary for anyone to start cycling in the city, but knowing more about what to expect, I think helps you. Just having a toolkit of possible scenarios and how to get out of them safely is always important for not just cycling, but living in this world. Joe had a follow-up also talking about the state of the city's sidewalks. Could you talk more about another segue into the Feet First Philly pedestrian guide, but talking about being a pedestrian in Philly and how we can improve it?
Yeah, unfortunately, the state of sidewalks is in terrible repair currently. I think that's reflected in the lawsuit that ADA organizations have against the city of Philadelphia, and basically saying that they can't travel safely around the city because the sidewalks are in such bad condition. So Yeah, that's something that we're always concerned about. There's different reporting mechanisms that you can report sidewalks to the city. Unfortunately, I think the city was supposed to come out with a kind of a comprehensive sidewalk study and inventory this past summer, I guess. And so it's something that they might still come out by the end of the year, but I think it's going to take some sort of rethinking of one prioritizing pedestrian safety above anything else. The road's most vulnerable users, so we have to ensure that we protect them. And it also has direct consequences for neighborhoods and if there's poor connections to a health center or a grocery store, people don't elderly, the most vulnerable populations, elderly people with disabilities, don't have connections to those resources. So it's something that I hope that the city rethinks. As of now, property owners are responsible for for the sidewalks in front of their homes, and there's not really a mechanism to ensure that people maintain their sidewalks. And there's also no help from the city, so that the city doesn't spend any money on sidewalk repair, or very little compared to other cities nationwide. So it's something I think that just needs a sort of an overhaul A to Z on how Philadelphia thinks about its sidewalks.
And Ira pointed out that the numbers you were showing for the carbon footprint of different modes of transportation, with the regional rails having so few passengers, and likewise all of public transit having so few passengers, it's getting really bad. Do you have a sense of kind of how the pandemic has affected the carbon footprint of each thing, considering there are fewer, the ridership is down?
Yeah, I can't speak to like the exact number. I know ridership is down pretty significant. I think like over 40%. I think it's bounced back a little as of late, but I think the other important thing to remember is that those 40% aren't really, not, at least not the majority of them, aren't sort of going into driving single occupancy vehicles to and from work. The majority of people are working from home now. And so those emissions aren't sort of the public transit emissions aren't offset by more people driving. You have less people driving and working from home. So I think, there's a kind of a net benefit, even though, that obviously hits SEPTA's pockets really hard. The emissions aspect of it, we've dramatically decreased the amount of our transportation emissions, both regionally and nationally.
We have a good question about what people can do about cars parked in bike lanes and on sidewalks.
So yeah, there's a couple different options, but that Twitter campaign that I mentioned is a great way for us to be able to track, especially hotspots inside of the city of areas that are sort of habitual offenders of parking on sidewalks. I'm looking at you, South Philly, or in crosswalks. So you can take a picture of the car and tweet hashtag not a spot to Feet First Philly's Twitter, and we will grab that information. It's something that we collect and that we bring to the parking authority and to city agencies to report, like, hey, these are the areas most affected by parking. I think if you wanted to, there's a couple things that you can do for sort of direct action as well. Parking permits in areas, if it's something that your section of the city doesn't already have. Parking permits are basically bring the PPA to your neighborhood who do enforce parking. And that's something that if people are parking illegally, that you want to see the PPA doing their job and making sure that everyone can safely travel and isn't doesn't have sidewalks or crosswalks blocked.
As a follow-up to that, have you seen any like actual enforcement when you're following up with the Not a Spot campaign with the city? I know at least the corner of my block, there ends up being a lot of vehicles parked on the sidewalk. And it's, you know, it's bad. And it'd be good to know that there's something that can actually come from that.
Yeah, so that's something that we've actually, we've had conversations with police districts, especially where parking permits, where there aren't parking permits or where PPA doesn't enforce parking regulations, so non-permitted areas. It's the police department's responsibility for enforcing them. And that's something that in the past we've had successful conversations with police districts on, really, again, identifying those hot spots and saying, hey, you know, this is something, there's people parked on this sidewalk, you know, 7 days a week, where it's completely unusable for anyone. So, you know, children or parents pushing their children in a stroller have to cross the street or more dangerously, walk in the middle of the street. So I think when you break that down as a sort of a neighborhood problem, and something that affects people's day-to-day lives, you have a bit of empathy coming from the police. I mean, sometimes the police are guilty of it as well, but yeah, we have had success not only talking to police departments, but also council members, as well as just bringing this up as, you know, something that's a systemic problem within their sort of council district.
It's funny you bring up that the police can be a part of the issue too. Have you found any success keeping police officers, either their official cars or their personal cars, from parking on sidewalks or parking illegally in general?
Personal cars, I'm not sure about. You know, police cars are emergency vehicles, so it's tough to enforce. Like when is there emergency happening and when is there not, and so that's something that you kind of have to, I guess, live and let be with emergency vehicles. You wouldn't kick an ambulance out of a crosswalk if you saw them there. So I think you have to kind of give police the benefit of the doubt as well.
Cool. Well, thank you, Maya and Will. If there are no more questions, then I think we can call this webinar to a halt. Again, on Friday, we have the Feet First Philly pedestrian advocacy guide, right? At 1 o'clock. Tonight we have, I believe at 6, we have the urban bike riding webinar, which is very exciting. That's with the Bicycle Coalition of Philadelphia. And again, I want to thank everyone for coming here. You can see everything from Greenfest Philly at cleanair.org/Greenfest. We have a Facebook event, so you can get notified of things as if they get added or changed. And if you missed any webinars during this Greenfest, you can see it again at that website. Thanks again from all of us at Clean Air Council, and we hope to see you a few more times throughout this festival. Thanks. Bye.
Everyone, thanks for having us, Bobby.
Have a good day.